So let me go live. Okay. All right. So for our review, let's build something from scratch again. So you open VS Code. By the way, you could have multiple VS Codes open. So I'll say VS Code, file, open folder, go to my desktop. I'll open that CGD200 folder, and I'll create a new folder called review, and I'll select that folder. And actually, let me, instead of using VS Code, this time I'm gonna open Dreamweaver, so you could see what Dreamweaver looks like. It's pretty similar. So VS Code is just one of the options you have, but it's free, so that's why I use it, and it's a very good one. It's very popular. A lot of people use VS Code. You also have Dreamweaver, which looks like this. Okay, so again, it's gonna give you this nice color-coded code editor. By the way, this is some PHP here. Let me close that. Just so you get an idea of how complicated some sites can get. And this is something this was that LAPC website that I used to like take your attendance and stuff. Well, this one's probably overcomplicated, and I did this without knowing much about PHP, so it's probably not the most efficient code, but um, it includes, like, I had to use JavaScript and PHP. PHP is not that difficult to learn, I think. I mean, it's probably difficult to learn, but not difficult to make use of. Like, if you don't know much about PHP, you could start using it, making use of it. But so here's what the entire website would look like. I've got all these folders. We've got an images folder. We've got a bunch of images in there. Not sure why I used so many images though. Um, I don't even know what I used all those images for in that website. It doesn't have that many images. Got uploads. Oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong site. This one. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think I had so many images. So that's all the images I use for that one website. We've got JavaScript, and I don't know, it looks kind of like this. I'm not trying to like scare you with showing you how much code there is, but that's just one file. There's another file. Um, this is, I'm not sure what this is. I didn't make this. Might be something I imported. Um, but yeah, there's like thousands of lines of code total. I mean, including the JavaScript, including all the PHP stuff. Some of them is short. It's just a file with like this much stuff in it. So they're not all really long. Here's like a example of, let's look at the actual footer. That would be, well, I guess it is this, right? Example of footer. but with JavaScript and stuff included. Anyways, that's just to show you how big it could get. But again, this was something I did very inefficiently, and I could have probably done it with much less code, and um, probably would be better if I didn't use PHP and I used something else. But at the time, that's what I decided to use, I guess. But so Dreamweaver, when you create a new file or you want to start a new site, it doesn't have that file open folder like in Dreamweaver. I mean in VS Code. Instead, you go to a site and you create a new site, and you give it a name and you pick. So instead of saying open folder, you choose your local site folder like this. So for example, this new folder that I just created on the desktop, inside CGD 200 called review, I could select that folder. So now that's basically like saying open folder, and I could give it a name. So review or CGD 200 review. And you can see here it has some other options like servers, and then all this stuff I don't know. I never really used these. CSS preprocessors and advanced settings. I don't know what to do with those, but server lets you add like a server. If you actually have a web host, you can click add here, and then you could give it a name. Like for example, I don't know, if I'm using like Hostinger CSS 200 or something, and you connect using file transfer protocol or secure file transfer protocol. So what the FTP is basically like a way to establish a connection between Dreamweaver and the actual server. So this is one thing that I don't think VS Code has. Maybe there's a plugin for it to do something like this, but this lets you connect directly to your server. So if you need to make changes on your website on your local computer, you want to update the actual server, you're trying to update the website, you could make this connection. And then once you have the connection, let me open that other site that I had. So I'll click manage sites and click LAPC. Actually, not manage. I'll just open from here. Let's say I make some changes, like maybe I want to update the CSS for something. Like I want to change maybe one of my colors that I have. And oh, I guess I could show you how to do this. You can see I've got a special CSS file just for colors, and I've got my colors saved here as like these variables, which is something else that I gotta show you. Maybe in CGD, not 200, whatever comes after. I think it's 210. Not sure. But if I make a change, I can click here and then click this button, say put file to remote server, and then it'll make a connection to the actual server and it'll upload this over there so the actual website is updated. I don't know, it would be better if I showed you all this from scratch somehow, but obviously we're not gonna do that today because it'll take a while. Let's see, what else does this let you do? Well, let's go to manage sites. Did I save that one? No, I didn't. Okay, so the one I was just doing, oh no, I did CGD 200, my first site. No, that's something else, I guess. Let's close this. Say open, and let's create a new file for CGD review. So I'm gonna say file new. So when you create a new file here, you could choose what type of file you're trying to make. All it's gonna do is will create the new file with the extension. So if I want an HTML file, I'll say HTML and choose which version of HTML, and we want HTML5. And it'll give us this very basic boilerplate. Okay, so this is like what you would get in VS Code if you created a new file. Let's go to, again, desktop, CGD200, review. If I want to create a new file, index.html, and I press exclamation point and tab, we get something similar. Right, except this one, when I press exclamation point and tab, I get a couple extra things. Here we got the meta character set UTF-8, but we also get the viewport thing here. So here it's not included. But so since I created this, I'm gonna delete it. So I could create it through here. Well, I created it, but I didn't save it. It says untitled. So I'll just say save. And we'll call it index.html. Now we can see files. Oh, the local root folder, my first website, does not exist. Yeah, because I chose the wrong site. We should create new one, new site called CGD200 review. And the folder for that is, again, this one. Let's say save. Done. Okay, so now when I click here, it shows me that folder. So just like in VS Code, where you have your files, you can see over here. On Dreamweaver, it's on this side. I'm sure you could move it around, put it on this side if you wanted. But I'll leave it here. How do I get it to stick? Just bring it like that. So click files, and there it is. And if we wanted to, create something like a H1 hello world. Another nice thing about Dreamweaver is it has this split view where you could see a preview of it, like what it would look like in the browser. It's not 100% accurate though. So sometimes it's not as good as actually opening it in the browser and checking what it looks like, but it gives you a preview. And you could look at the code, you could look at split, or you could click live and just see what the website would look like. So live is like an even more accurate version of the design view. So you could switch between live and design. So if I make changes here, like if I make this a H1 instead of a H2 and save it, you can see it got bigger. Yeah, but I don't find it that useful because I mean here, if I want to do something like that, I could just use my live server, open this like side by side and say open with live server, and just have this open on the side. And make my changes. Let's say make this a paragraph and save it, and it updates. So yeah, it's not super useful that Dreamweaver has this split view. And it says that this file has been modified because I changed it in VS Code, but I didn't change it here. Now I can reload it by saying yes, and this should change to a paragraph as well. But yeah, so in Dreamweaver you get again, a nice code editor that's color coded, and if you wanted to, let's say, add some CSS, you could again add the styles tag here, and let's say I want to change the background color. Let's leave split code so we could see it. Like I could say body, and then you can see here it helps me out. It gives me a list of all the CSS properties I can add here. So if I type B, you get everything that starts with a B, and what I want to change is the background color. And it has a color picker, so you can pick whatever color you want. Say I pick that, press enter. Now we can see this background is that color. And yeah, so I mean, it's pretty easy to get started using this. You just gotta remember, every time you're working on a new site, you say new site, give it a name, pick the folder, and then it'll show you your folder and what's in it on the side here. You click files. Yeah, so if I had servers, it would show me, it would give me an option to look at my local site and my what do you call it, the server site. So here it doesn't really give me that option. It says define servers, specify testing and hosting servers, but if I go back to the other file, the one that I did define, which is in my C XAMPP htdocs LAPC. If I open this one, site root. Did I click open or did I click something else? Open. Oh, I clicked open, that's why. Okay, so let's go back, see. Where did it go? htdocs. Alright, so I don't have a specific file I want to open, but I'll just click something here. Oh, and I'm still in that CGD review, so I gotta change it from here actually, this little drop down. So pick the LAPC site. Now I could see these files, and now I have the option between local view and remote server. So remote server is the web host, and you can see it's got the same files as my local view. Give or take a folder. I'm not sure what's extra here. I guess I got like some random automatically generated file here that's extra. But you could see it's the same files that have locally. So you have got that portal folder with the CSS folder. In my remote server, I got the same thing, portal, CSS, it's all here. So whatever you have on your local site, you're gonna put on your remote server. This is why I say create a folder for everything you have, so you can pick that folder and upload everything in it to the actual server, so it's actually on the internet. Because while it's on your local computer, it's not really live on the internet. But yeah, so this is just a little bit of a convenience when you set up your server. You establish the connection by saying site, manage site, and then defining your server here. Like you can see here, I'm using DreamHost, and I've got FTP address, ftp.portal. So again, FTP means file transfer protocol. That's just a different way of connecting to a website. When we visit a website here, it doesn't show, but okay, now it does. We use the HTTPS protocol, Hypertext text transfer protocol secure. That extra S just means secure. So when you connect with HTTP or HTTPS, there's different rules. It's saying basically if I go to this address in this web browser, I want you to send me the files back and render it on the screen on the browser. But when you connect through FTP to that same site, you're basically just making a connection that lets you directly send and receive files from the website. So that's just how you would update the site using that FTP protocol. And you don't need to do this through Dreamweaver. Of course, there's other ways to connect and update your files. Okay, but Dreamweaver just makes it a little bit convenient by putting it here, letting you choose between remote and local, and by letting you put files that you updated or to get files from the server if you need to. So, but alternatives would be to use something like FileZilla. So this one also lets you connect to your remote server. So you would have to find out the host and the username and your password and your port. But this is all stuff you would get once you pick a web host. You'll find this information there somewhere, so you could connect to it. And then here it's showing again local site and remote site. So pretty much the same thing as what you get in Dreamweaver. So if I want to update something, I could drag it here, or I want to get something from the server, I could get it from there. But right now I'm not connected, so it's not gonna let me connect, so I'll close that. And another way to connect and update files on a server is through the actual website itself that you're using as your server. So for example, if it's let's say Hostinger, it's another Hostinger is another, what do you call it, web host. So just like DreamHost is one, and this is, I don't know if I mentioned it, but DreamHost, well, not webmail. Let's go just to DreamHost. I just want to go to dreamhost.com. So this is one of those sites that gives you hosting, which is basically it gives you a server that you can upload your files to, so it could be on the internet. So if I click hosting, we can see the plans that they have. So this is their prices. Like you could pay $250 a month for one website. Gives you a free domain name, unlimited traffic, unmetered bandwidth, fast solid state storage, WordPress pre-installed, free SSL certificate. This is what gives you that free SSL certificate. That's how you get the S at the end of HTTP. And it just means your connection is a little more secure. So it's harder for hackers to steal information when you're sending it to the server and it's coming back to you. So all of these pretty much give you that. So the one I'm using, Hostinger, also, let's see their pricing. Yeah, it's a little cheaper for their cheapest one. I don't know. Overall, I think Hostinger is a little cheaper. But once you sign up, pay for the host, you can log in. And actually, there's a completely free one that's the same company as Hostinger. It's called 00 web host. So this is like a completely free web host. If you want to just play around with it and try it out, see what hosting looks like. Zero cost web hosting. So you could sign up for $0 a month. And I don't know if I have I'm sure I created an account, but I just don't know if I'll have the password for it. Oh, this is sign up. Well, we want to sign in. There's no way I'm gonna remember the password, but I'll give it a shot. Nope, that wasn't it. Okay, I'm not gonna try to remember that because it was a while ago. And also, I think Webhost, when you don't use it for a while, they just delete your account. That's why it's free. They don't just keep unused accounts because anyone could create an account and take up their resources. So they'll just delete you if you don't use it for a while. But let me just sign into the one that I do know the password. Just so I could show you what the web host looks like. So you go here, you got your options for hosting. You could, pick domain names. You can get your SSL certificate. And if you wanted to upload files, like I was showing you how you can do it through Dreamweaver by clicking this upload button. If you don't have Dreamweaver, you could go to hosting and then manage something like 123dave.com. And it has, so different web hosts are going to have different ways of doing this. In Hostinger, you got this file manager. You click on file manager. And then there's this public folder. Usually it's going to be a public.html folder where you would upload your site. So for example, if I wanted to upload what we just worked on, this the CSS lesson where we did all this stuff. If I wanted this to go live on the internet, I would have to take basically all these files, everything inside the CSS lesson folder, and I would have to upload it. Oops, I closed it. But yeah, you drag this all into that public folder, and you would be able to see it on the internet when you go to your domain name. But yeah, we'll do a more in which class was it? I think WST, one of the WSTs. I'll go over this more thoroughly, how to create a web host account and to upload your files. And I think it's the WordPress class that we have, because in that WordPress class I ask you guys to create a free hosting account with 00 web host, and then we upload files to it. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know, web development could be complicated depending on which route you go, but you could also simplify it for yourself and just do things like use CMSs like Wix or WordPress. You could build things from scratch using JavaScript, or you could just do static websites like what we've been doing and just upload it, and things don't have to be that complicated. But yeah, just I don't like using Dreamweaver so much because I don't know, I just prefer the Visual Studio layout. It's a little simpler, and I'm not really worried about having a connection to the server through here. If I need to, I'll just upload things manually or find a different way. But let me just check real quick if I'm still logged in. Nope, I'm logged out. I do want to upload something just so we could see if it works. So go to my hosting. We've got a couple domains here that I have. And I'm going to use 123dav.com just to test out uploading stuff. Oops, not Cloudflare. Let's go File Manager. Okay, so currently inside my public folder for 123dav.com, I've got some stuff I did in a previous class, assignment 1, resume template, student sites. So if you went to 123dav.com, you would see just this root folder, because yeah, I didn't really pick a home folder for it. If I wanted a home folder, I would need an index, a home page. I would need something called index.html here. And if I went to 123dav.com, it would go straight to that file. So just as an example, if I go here, CHD200, and open this simple hello world that I just created, if I put this right here, okay, now instead of a bunch of folders, I've got one HTML file. If I go to 123dav.com again, now we see hello world. So it's showing me what I have here on my desktop, but on 123dav.com. So I'll delete this because I don't know, I wanted this to be the way it is. So when you go to it, you can see these different folders. And here's some student sites. We can look at what previous students made. And here's like just some template site that I created. But I'll add this one to one of these sites that I have here, the CSS lesson. I'll just upload the whole folder. Oops, not here. I'll put the whole folder right here. That CSS lesson. Okay, so now if I go here, refresh, now we've got our CSS lesson. If I click on it, it's going to go to the home page. Alright, and everything works just the same. Except now this is an actual live website. It's on the internet now. And all I had to do was take this whole folder and upload it to this public folder right here. And if I didn't upload it like this, let's delete this again. Delete. If I didn't take the whole folder, instead I took the files in the folder and I uploaded it. Now all of this is just gonna be right there in the public folder. When I go to 123dave.com, it's just gonna look for whatever's named index.html, and it's gonna make that like the home page that you first see. So what I'm doing right now is I'm basically using that FTP file transfer protocol to send files from my desktop to here, and I'm able to do it through that file, what do you call it, file manager. So instead of doing it through FileZilla and like establishing the connection through here, I could just avoid having to figure out the host username, password, and port and all that. Just do it straight from there. And then in Dreamweaver, if you set up that remote server, you could just click upload and it'll do this automatically for you through Dreamweaver, so you never have to log into your hosting account and do it. All right, so now it's all here, and I've got different HTML files. So if I go to 123dave.com, you can see it goes to whatever's named index.html. Right, but now if I wanted to go to one of those other folders that I had here, like assignment 1 or resume template, I would have to type this manually, assignment 1, and I could still go to this other page that I have inside this folder. I just have to figure out the folder name and type it in. Yeah, but let me undo that. I don't really want these here, so images, CSS, I think that's everything. Yeah, delete that. Alright, so now it's back to how it was, where it just shows these folders. Okay, because I don't have an index.html there. Yep, so yeah, that's how most web hosts will work for you. Close this. So that's why I say put everything in a folder, because you gotta upload it just the way it is. So like if your index.html is referencing something in the images folder or the CSS folder, it has to be exactly how it is, like this, for it to work. You can't upload it and have a different folder for your images called image, because then it'll stop working, just like it stops working here. So now it works. Okay. Anyway, so that's how you would upload to the internet. Okay. So yeah, you could see, even if it's something as simple as this hello world, I could still put it on the internet, make it an actual web page. But let's do something with this review. So we looked at how to create an HTML file. You have your HTML. Oops. You start with the HTML file, HTML tag, and inside that you have a head, and you have a body, if you have Prettier installed, it'll format it for you every time you save. Inside the head you have things like the title and that meta tag. But you also have that one doc type declaration, which just says we're using HTML5. When we say doc type HTML, that just means we're using HTML5. The alternative would be if you're using, well, let's see what it looks like. If I was gonna say HTML, and instead of 5, I was using like XHTML, we'd get, well, actually, I don't think that's it. I don't know, nah, this doesn't have like the automatic thing, but HTML4 is a little bit longer. It's just HTML5 is the latest version, so when you type HTML, click 5, just gives you this same thing as exclamation point tab. So, I mean, you should still remember what these are for. Again, which version of HTML you're using. This is the main, the main element, the root element for your HTML file is HTML tag, and then it's got a head and a body. In the head, we'll put things like the title that shows up on the tab up here. Well, it says document here, but that's because it says document here. But if we say HTML, or let's say CGD 200 review, now it'll say CGD 200 review up here. And inside the body is where you put the things that you'll see. If you want to add a style sheet in an external file, you would link to it here with the link tag in the head. Type equals, it would say text slash CSS, rel equals style sheet, and the href equals, and then you'd have to navigate to that CSS folder and a CSS file, which I don't have currently, so leave that blank. Or if you wanted to do internal styles, you didn't want to link to it, you just want to put your styles directly in here, you could use the style element, and you could write your CSS directly in here with body, background color, and you could change the styles that way. Okay, but you already know there's some advantages to linking instead of putting it directly in there. And then of course you also have the option to say style equals directly inside the tag and pick a background color that way. Look exactly the same. But then you're gonna have to, I don't know, it's just more difficult to manage if you start using inline styles like that. So always, I don't know, I always prefer using the link tag and having an external CSS file, which I can create inside a CSS folder in something like styles.css. And then I can link to that. So it doesn't matter what order you put this. I could put the href first, and then I could put the rel equals style sheet. And that's enough to make it work, but you should still include the type, even though it works without it. Right, so now I have an external style sheet. So yeah, creating an external style sheet, linking to it, Hopefully you guys will remember how to do that. And if we want to create a navigation, you could use the header tag. You don't have to, but it's the proper way to do it. It's more, this is thinking about accessibility. You could just make it a div and just, like, I don't know, give it a class equals head or nav or something if you wanted to just create something you don't care about accessibility, but the proper tag to use is always header. And if you have your nav buttons, you could put them inside a nav tag. Again, it's like making it a div, but giving it the proper name just helps with accessibility and also helps with search engines, you know, finding your site and your information more easily. Okay, so for a navigation, you don't have to, but usually if you have your list of navigation buttons, you put them inside an unordered list. But you could just have a list of links without that. Usually you have like a home page, about, and a contact. I don't know. Pretty much every page has those three at least. And there it is. But like I said, I usually put them inside an unordered list and a list item for each button. Okay, then it ends up looking like this instead of next to each other. So you'd have to use your CSS to tell the header nav LIs to be display inline block instead of inline, so they could go next to each other. Or you could use CSS grids by using display grid, and then grid template columns, 1FR, 1FR, 1FR. If you want to split it into, why didn't it work? Display grid, grid template columns, 1FR, 1FR. Let me inspect it. Oh, oops, sorry. Don't put the grid on the LI itself. The grid has to go on the parent. So I would put, well, why don't I just do this? Delete the LI. So the header nav UL is the one that would have the display grid. And then, yeah, well, it's not gonna put them right next to each other. Since I'm using grid, it's splitting it into 3 equal columns. But of course, you could just change the width of the UL. Let's say give it a width of, I don't know, 300 pixels. So now they're closer together instead of what the default was, which was 100%. That's why they're so far apart. And if you want to see something, you don't know exactly what that UL looks like, just give it a background color temporarily just so you could see it. There you could see that's our UL. If I didn't put the width 300 pixels, you would see why it's spread across like that. So adding the width just makes it smaller. We could use grid template columns, but we can also use grid template areas. Grid template areas would be more useful if, let's say we're creating, instead of the header, let's go after the header. Let's say this is our, I don't know, it's like a shopping cart or something, right? We'd create maybe a main section for our main content and create a section with a class equal to shopping cart, or maybe instead of a class, because I haven't used IDs much, you could say ID equals shopping cart. So what's the difference between an ID and a class? You're supposed to assign an ID. Like if I create an ID of shopping cart, only one element should have that ID. So if I have this section, I can't have another section with the same ID. You're not supposed to do that, because the ID is supposed to be a unique identifier. I mean, when you start using JavaScript and stuff, then it starts mattering more that you have a unique ID. But even here, there's situations where it's gonna be important that you don't have two of these. If it was a class, that's no problem. You could put the same class on multiple elements. But when it's an ID, just make sure only one thing has the ID. And the ID of shopping cart and class of shopping cart, you could have both. There's no problem doing that. You could even say ID equals shopping cart and class equals shopping cart. They could have, your class name could be the same as the ID name. That's also okay. And in the styles, if I wanted to do something with the ID of shopping cart, I could use a hashtag. And if it's a class, you use a dot. Okay, so this is for classes, this is for IDs if you're gonna change the CSS. So right now I've got something with ID and class shopping cart, and I've got something with just class shopping cart. If I say the thing with the ID shopping cart, I want it to have a background color of chocolate, let's say, and a height, so we could see it, let's say 100 pixels. If I look at this, we can see there's one thing here that's with that chocolate background and a height of 100 pixels. If I put this instead on the class, what did I not save? Okay, I didn't save that. Okay, if I put it on class, now both of them have it, so you can see this taller. It'll be easier to tell if give it some margin. Remember, margin is the space outside of the border, so there you can see there's 1, 2. Because I've got two things with the class shopping cart, but only one with the ID. So if I put it back here, we only get one. So most of the time I use classes because I'm just styling stuff. I just want to put a class on something so all those things with the same class could have the same styles. But you can also style with IDs. Just remember, an ID should be unique. It should be only on one element, the same ID. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I'm creating a section. I'm gonna give it a class. I'll give it an ID because I'm not gonna have more than one shopping cart. So I'll say ID equals shopping cart. And inside that, I will say maybe create a div as some kind of a container. I mean, we don't really need it. We could let the section be the container. But I wanna, I don't know, let's open Illustrator. We could do this with Illustrator, or we could do this with Figma as well, if we're just designing something. But, you know, I'm just gonna use Illustrator so I don't have to log into Figma. So let's say I want to create some kind of shopping cart. Well, first of all, I don't know, what do we want our shopping cart to look like? It's gonna be in some kind of container, right? So we'll need some kind of box for it. We need maybe an image. And we're gonna need the price for the item. Price. What else? We need the name. Maybe a description. And the count, like how many. And I don't know, how do you want to design this? Let's do something where I could make use of CSS grid template areas. So basically, instead of just making it a bunch of columns, let's do, maybe we want like a picture here, and, or I don't know, maybe a name up there and a picture below it. I have no idea. Let's do, okay, the whole left side will be a picture. Or maybe not the whole thing, but most of it. And on the bottom, we can have, okay, we could have the description here. And the description, let's make some fake text here. That's maybe too much, but let's increase the font size. Okay, so maybe there's the name and there's the description, and maybe we'll put the price somewhere here. I don't know, let's say $24.99. And then the count. Maybe we have 3 of them in the shopping cart. So we'd have something here. So we've got basically 1, 2, 3 rows. If I was to divide this into actual rows that you can see, maybe it would look like this. But yeah, if I had it like this, the picture would be taking up all of this, and the name would be taking up this area, the description would be here, and the price and the count. That would be just for like one item in the shopping cart. And then maybe this could be like an input where you could change the number. So I'll just put it in a little box. That could be a number input. So I'll show you how to make all this in a second. Yeah, so we could use grid template areas to basically create an image area, a name area, a description area, a price, and a count area. And then we can create those elements and through CSS assign them an area, and then use grid template areas to basically say, here, it would look like this. We would say grid template areas, and the grid template areas would look like this. Our first row would just be image name. The second row would be image description, because image name, image description, and then price count. Right, so that's how you would do it with the grid template areas. Template areas, and then you would have a class somewhere. So you'd have let's just take this. Let's say you have the image, something with the class equals image, or shopping cart image, specifically the image that's inside the shopping cart. You would assign it a grid area image, right? The same name that you put here. I mean, I could call it banana if I want, and I would have to call it banana here if I did that. Just to make more sense, call it grid area image. And then if I have my name, probably be shopping cart, like an H1 or something, or more specifically, I could give it a cart name, like a class name, like item name, and then say grid area name. So it uses this grid area name. But yeah, that's how you would use grid template areas to organize your columns. You could also do this probably with grid template columns like we've used before. Okay, in this case it's 2 columns, so I would say 1 FR, 1 FR, so that's 2 columns. But then you'd have to specify, like for the image, for example, whatever as class of image, you'd have to tell it to do grid column. You would say actually we don't change the column, the grid row, because it's taking up 2 rows. You'd have to say grid row 1, 2, 2. So it'd take up, actually is that 1 to 2? 1 to 3, sorry. Because when you're counting how far you want something to extend on the rows, this would be the 1, this would be 2, and this would be 3. So you don't count the actual rows, you count the borders of the rows. So this would be 1 through 3. It'll make more sense if I actually do it instead of drawing it here. But hopefully by drawing it, this will start making more sense. So we created the section shopping cart, and let's give this div a class equal to cart item. And since I'm using dashes here, I'll keep that same. I'll do dash here to cart item. And so we're gonna have inside the cart item, there's gonna be an image with class equals image. There's gonna be maybe an h1 class equals name for the name. Probably have a paragraph with class equals description. We'll probably have, well, is that it? No, we have a couple more. We've got the price, so maybe an h3 class equals price. And here you want to use classes because you might have another cart item that also has those classes. So that's why I'm not using IDs, I'm using classes for these, because there's going to be more than one. And then for the price, it'll just show the price. And then for the amount, maybe for this I'll make a div, because I'm going to have 2 things here. I'm going to have a paragraph, or maybe another h3 that says count. And then after the count, we'll have an input type equals number. And let's put something in the image. Source equals images. Oh, we don't have an images folder. New folder, images, and I don't know, image1.jpg. And I'll put some kind of image1 in there real quick. Let's take this picture of this lamp, put it in here. It's called lamp.jpg, so I'll call it lamp.jpg. So name, friendship, lamp, description, blah blah. Just the description. Price, let's say it's 49.99. Count will be an input type number. Let's add a placeholder equals 0. Let's see what this looks like. Okay, so by default, it just looks like this. Friendship lamp, blah, 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 49.99, count 0. Okay. And I'm gonna put I want to put a border on everything. So I'm gonna say, actually not a border. Let's just put a background color on each item so we could see what it looks like. Because here it just shows, I mean, you can't really tell, but this is taking up the entire row. This is taking up the entire row. So everything is display block except the image, but they're all taking up their own line right now. So it's not really set up like this at the moment. We don't have the name here. We have the name down here. The description's here instead of here and here. So if you want to set it up like this, first I'll give everything a background color so we can see them. So I created a div called cart item inside shopping cart. So I'll just say cart item because probably not going to have cart items outside of the shopping cart. So no need to say section shopping cart. Right, you could do that if you want to just be more specific, right? But section shopping cart. But we don't need to do that. Just say shopping cart. Or cart item. So it's got an image, an H1, a paragraph. So cart item image first will do. Well, the image actually we don't need to give it a color. It's already got a picture in it. So cart item was it H1? Yeah. Cart item H1. Say background color. Just pick something like coral. Cart dash item. The paragraph. Is that a paragraph in there? Yeah. For the description, it's a paragraph. Oh, but I did give these classes. So name and description. I'll just use that. Instead of H1, I'll say name. Instead of paragraph, I'll say description. Give this a background color, something different. Maybe crimson. Cart item dot got price and no, this one we didn't give it a class. But that's gonna be the count, right? So I'll just give it a class equals count. So count is gonna be both the H3 and the input together. Well, let's do price first. And then cart dash item dot count. Give that a background color. I don't know, deep pink. Okay. Now everything has a background color. Oh, except the count. Why doesn't that have a count? Because I didn't save this. Alright, so you can see how much space each thing takes up. And they've all got some default margins, that's why they're not touching, but that's why I always do this. I say all margin 0, padding 0, and box sizing border box. So I always add this at the top just to make sure I get all the default stuff out of the way. Okay, so now they're touching. Yeah, so our goal is to take this and put it in this arrangement. So we'll have the picture on the left side, but we'll move the name and the description here and here. And then we'll leave the price and the count on the bottom. So I'm doing this so we could look at how to use grid template areas. Almost break time though, so maybe I'll stop here and yeah, I'll maybe upload this if you guys want to do this with me. I'll upload it and then we can continue from this point. Okay, so I'll just put this on the OneDrive, but you can take a break. Alright, so I want to create this sort of layout. And I only put these lines so you could see how many rows and columns we actually have. But we want something like that. And so far it looks like this. Everything's just a single column. Picture, name, description, price, count. So if you want to follow along, you could download what I have here. I posted it on the OneDrive. Alright, so I created a header, but I didn't really style it, so it's just looking kind of plain right now. I mean, I styled a little bit. I gave it a display grid just so I could put them next to each other, the buttons, but we'll do more with that. But first, let's fix this by using grid template areas this time. So we want to use grid template areas. You want to put grid template areas on the container of all the items. And in this case, the container for everything is the cart item. So every cart item that we have, this is just one cart item, but we could copy paste it and have two items in the cart. This is 1, 2. Right now they're the same, but you could change the name. And I added this input, which doesn't really do anything, but it's an input. Maybe if you did, I don't know, if you passed it to a developer or something, they could make use of it. You know, as a designer, you could just design stuff with the CSS and have someone else do all the other stuff, the more programming stuff in the back for you. So I'll just I'll delete one. Just leave one right now, just so it looks more simple. So we got the div with the class of cart item, which is the container. So we're gonna put the grid template areas on the cart item, and then each item inside, the image, the h1, the paragraph, the h3, and this div with the class count, they're all gonna have, they're gonna be assigned a grid area. So again, the cart item is the main container, so we'll say cart dash item, and we'll say grid template areas, and we'll define it like this. So for each row, we'll put quotes, and we're gonna have again image and then name. So I'll put image name, and then, well, let's put this on the next line so it's easier to see. image name, and then we'll have image description, right? Because then the next row is image description. Then we'll have the price, and well, actually, let me see. Yeah, price and the count. So that's it. There's just 3 rows: price and count. Oh, let's take that semicolon, put it there. So that defines our grid template areas, how we want it to look. Image name, image description, and price and count. Okay, so right now it's not going to look any different because we didn't assign a grid area for each of these. So to assign it, we'll just do it here. So for cart name, grid area is name. For description, grid area is description. I'm not sure if we need to put these in quotes. I don't know if we need quotes. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I'll check in a second. I forgot. So for the price, grid area price. Actually, sorry. The price doesn't have a grid area. The price is, oh sorry, it does have an area. The count doesn't. So yeah, this is grid area price. Cart item dot count. Yeah, that does have an area. Grid area. We'll put count. And we also need the price, but let me see what it looks like at the moment. Hasn't changed. I think I don't need the quotes around these. Let's try without the quotes. It still looks the same. Oh, I think we also need to divide it into columns. But let me real quick go to W3 schools. And let's look at CSS. Scroll down to CSS grid and see how they did it. So grid area, oh yeah, it doesn't have the quotes. So no quotes. Got rid of the quotes. And did I say display grid on this? Yeah, I did. Let's add the image also, because the image is gonna have a grid area image. So that's this image here. So we'll just say cart dash item image grid area image. Okay, it's not working yet. I wonder why. It's not putting them where they need to go. We know the classes are correct because they're getting their different background colors. Cart item. That should be working as well. I put the correct class name. What are we missing? Oh, I didn't put display grid. I have grid on this one, not on this one. Oops. Of course, grid template area is not going to work without display grid. That's why it's not working. I thought I put it. Display grid. Okay, so now it should work. There we go. Okay, so now it's set up the way I designed it here. Right? So we've got the image on the left side taking up the first two rows. And then we've got the name, the description, the price, and the count. So the count, we want to put them next to each other. So I could just say display inline block for the H3 and the input. So cart dash item dot count H3. So this H3 right now is display block. That's why it's not letting this go next to it. So that H3 will say display inline block. Okay, now it lets the count go next to it. And we can get rid of the background colors. And if we want to center these, centering with display grid is easy. You just need to say align items center to vertically align them. So now they're in the middle instead of on the top. And we can also say justify content center to center it horizontally. And we can say text align center to center all the text. Okay, and we can also change the height to be 100%. So it takes up 100% of that column. So we need that for the name. Height 100%. Okay, so now it's 100%. Oh, but if we do that, then this is no longer going to be in the middle like this. But I guess we could say for if you want it to be in the center, you could change the line height to be 100% as well. But that would be a problem if this was a longer name that went to the next line. Then each line that, like, let's say instead of friendship lamp, I had, I don't know, cool friendship lamp. Cool friendship lamp should be enough. So now it's like two lines, right? Cool friendship and then lamp. So if I want to center this, one way to do it is by changing the line height to 100%. 100%. Oh, but it would actually need I think it would need an actual pixel height for that to work, no? Anyway, so either way, it's not gonna work with the line height. But what we can do is leave the height 100%. We could even make this display grid or display flex. And then we can say line items, center, oops, not flex, and center. And then you could get it to be centered that way. So with display grid, line item center, but I put it on the name now. So even though there's no grid here, it's just a single thing, I just put display grid just so I could use align item center to put this in the center. And I'll probably do the same with the description. if I wanted the height to be 100%, and if I didn't want this to be here, I want it to be in the center, I could say display grid for the description as well, just so I could do align items, center. And now I could get that in the middle. Okay, and let's get rid of the background colors so we could see what it looks like without the background color. I might want to put a background color anyway, like actually I'll put a background color on the entire cart item. We'll just make it white. And then probably give this padding, or give everything some padding, so especially the description. So say padding 20 pixels, so it's not touching the picture. And we give everything else some padding just to give it some space. So for the name also give it some padding. And the price. And the count. Okay, by adding some padding, you have a little bit more space. It looks a little bit nicer, I think, with the padding. Yeah, and then if we had multiple cart items, if we copy this, now you can see each cart item is set up the same way. Got the picture on the left, the price on the bottom, and the count on the bottom. Maybe we'll put the, let's put a different background color on the count and the price. What color would look nice with this? I'm just gonna do like a black color. Hashtag 222, not completely black, just a dark color. I'll put that on price and count. Okay. And then since I did that, I'll change the font color of those by saying color hashtag FFF for white. Okay, so now it looks like that. And if you want, you could also put maybe a border. What happens if we put a border on the cart item? I don't think, okay, no, that's not gonna work because we put a white background color on it, and the cart item is actually 100% width. It's not really from here to here. It's all the way from here to here. So if we put a border, it would just go around the whole thing. But I want a border like on this side. So I guess another thing we could do is not put the white background on this, instead put it on name and description. So I'll take the white background color that I put on cart item and instead just put it on name and description. So it looks like this now. That looks a little bit nicer. And also, if we wanted to put the cart items next to each other instead of on top of each other like this, we could even divide the section itself, because remember we put all this inside a cart item, and the cart item is what we made display grid, but we could make the shopping cart display grid as well. So we could get these to go next to each other. So I can say shopping cart. Before cart item, we have the shopping cart. We can say display grid and grid template columns 1FR, 1FR. So it's split into two. It still didn't work. Why didn't it work? Shopping. Oh, it's an ID, not a class. Okay, so since it's a ID, we don't use a dot, we use a hashtag. Alright, so now we've got the items next to each other. Let's add one more item. So we have two complete rows. Okay. So now you could add stuff to your shopping cart. Let's pretend and choose how many you want. And then when you're ready to check out, you could click a button to check out. Maybe we'll leave room on the right side for checkout. Or I don't know, where would be a good place to put the checkout button? We could put it on the bottom after all of this. Oh, we could also make sure this image is not so big, because that's really determining the height of the entire shopping cart. We could make the image a little bit smaller. Because it doesn't need to be so big. Cart item image, say height, let's say 200 pixels. Okay, so now they're a little bit smaller. But there's a gap between them. I'm not sure if we can. We should be able to get rid of that, put them closer together. I don't know why there's such a large gap. Let me check it out. I don't think it's from any padding or anything. Um, oh, maybe. Wait, no. Why is there so much gap between them? I think we could use the column gap for this. Maybe. Let's see. For shopping cart, we got display grid 1FR. Let's do column gap 0. That doesn't help. Something is causing that gap. I'm not sure what. So you can see the cart item when I hover over it. It's not as big as just what you see. There's a little bit extra on the left side. I think we could just say for the cart item with 100%. Nope, that doesn't help either. How do we get rid of this gap? Oh, I guess we could give the cart item background color. Let's say background color hashtag 222. Yeah, I guess that's just, I don't know. Um, yeah, I guess it's just the content is not big enough to fill it. Anyways, let's add the button down here to check out. So that would come after all the different cart items. So these are all cart items. We need this to be inside shopping cart. So right before the closing shopping cart div, which it's kind of hard to tell where it is right now, but you could like follow this line, I guess. Go down. Oh, well, it's the section, so it should be obvious. This is where the shopping cart ends. So right before the end, could add a button and say checkout. And we have our checkout button. We just need to style it. So maybe give it a class equals checkout button. And then we can say checkout button, give it a height of 50 pixels and a width of, how big should we make it? Like 300 pixels. Checkout dash btn, not button, btn. Okay, so there's the button. We want to center it, so we could just say margin auto. Oh, but it's being centered. Oh, okay. So because the checkout button is also inside the section for the shopping cart, and the section for the shopping cart is split into two columns, right? Because we said shopping cart grid template columns 1FR, 1FR. If you want the button to be centered in the middle and not just in the middle of one column, you could say grid column we want to go from the first column all the way to the last column. So you gotta count from the edge of the column. So this is 1, 2, and 3. So we want to go from 1 to 3. That way we could center it. You could also say 1 to -1 if you want to just span all columns. Doesn't matter how many there are. And maybe give it some padding or margin. Oh, we already gave it margin auto, so we want margin on the top and the bottom. So margin 20 pixels auto. So 20 on the top, auto on the left and the right. And then you could style your button to have different background color, no border. If you want to look a little more modern, you could say background color. Or actually, we could say, let's do a gradient. I haven't showed you how to do gradients. We can say background, linear gradient, and you could pick your colors for the linear gradient. So maybe you wanted to go from, I don't know, let's do hashtag, I'm just gonna pick two random colors, 222 and FFF. So it goes from black to white, but let's pick some nicer colors. Maybe we want to go from like a light blue to some purple. And we want to get rid of the border. And actually, let me make this lighter because we have black font in there. So let's keep it light colors. There's our button. Let's get rid of the border because it makes it look ugly. So border none. Okay, so now we have a nice looking button and a shopping cart, and let's quickly make that header look nicer too. I might be going too fast. Let me pause and let's review what I did so far. So I created the header, which has a nav inside and a UL and a li for each button with the A for the link. And then after the header, we have the main section, which holds a section called ID shopping cart. And the shopping cart has 4 cart items, which are just copies of each other. They're all the same. So each cart item has a class of cart item. It has an image with the class of image. It has an H1 with a class of name. And we're using these classes, class image, class name, to define the grid template area or the grid area. So for the cart item, which is the container of all this, of the image, the H1, the description, the price, the count, the cart item has to be grid template areas, and then you have to like write the area name how you want it to be. So the first row we want image and name, the second we want image and description, the next row we want price and count. So image name, image description, price, count. And then for the price to go where it needs to go, or the name to go where it needs to go, and the image to go where it needs to go, you have to give them grid areas. So we're using the class name, and or you could use the element name for the image. We're saying grid area image for that one, grid area name for that one. So it knows which part of this grid template area to go to. So the image goes to image, name goes to name, and that's how we got it to fit like in this layout. And some other things I did were used align item center to vertically center things, justify content center to horizontally center it, and text align center to center any text. Gave it a background color of this dark color. For the image, besides grid area image, we also set height 200 pixels. Otherwise, it was just coming in full size. It was too big. For the name, again, we gave it grid area name and height of 100%, so it takes up the entire height of its grid area. Otherwise, the white part would just be like as much as it needs, but we wanted to fill up the whole thing, so we did 100% height. We also did display grid on the name, just so we could center it vertically instead of this being like on the top here. It's in the middle of its grid area, because I said display grid and align items center. And we gave it 20 pixel padding and background color of white. So description, we did pretty much the same with the name. Gave it a height 100%, display grid, align item center, gave it padding and white background. The price, gave it a different background color. This time it's a black color for the price. And yeah, we gave it padding also. Same with the count. And then for the cart item count, H3. For this H3, the count, the one that says count, that's an H3. And normally it's display block, so I wouldn't be able to put this next to it, it would be under it. So I had to change that to display inline block, so I could go next to the input. The input by default is already inline block or inline, so you don't have to change it. But for the H3, this is a block level element, so I had to change it to inline block. And then the checkout button, I just set grid column 1 to -1, so it spans all 2 columns that we split the shopping cart into. Otherwise, it would just be centered in the first column. But since we're spreading it across both columns, I'm able to center it in the middle instead of here. I gave that a height, a width, margin, 20 pixel auto, so 20 pixels top and bottom, auto on the left and the right, so it centers. And gave it a background color gradient. So creating a background color as a gradient, you just have to type background and then linear gradient, and then inside parentheses, pick 2 colors. You could pick more colors actually. You could add a different color here if you wanted. Oh no, but if we did that, no, you gotta add a little bit more. You can't put 3 just like that. You have to pick where the color starts and ends, which is kind of complicated. But we could look it up on W3 Schools how to make a gradient where you could actually choose like what type of gradient, where it starts from, if it's like diagonal or from top to bottom or bottom to top. There's other options you could have, but this is like the most simple way to create a gradient. You just say linear gradient and pick 2 colors. But yeah, if you want to know how to do gradients, do W3 Schools, CSS backgrounds, background color. I don't know if it has gradient here. Might be somewhere else. CSS advanced, yeah, CSS advanced, CSS gradients. Okay, so you could have a gradient like this, but it's a little bit more complicated. So you need to put the direction, color stop 1, color stop 2. So it would look like, let's see, like for example, this one, it's going from left to right. So it says background image. You could just say background. It should work the same. Background, linear gradient, to right, red, yellow. So if I didn't put the to right, it would go from top to bottom. But you could add to left or to right and have it go from left to right. There's more you can do also. You can put 180 degrees, for example, to rotate it. So like this one, we could say like, I don't know, 45 degrees. And then, I don't know, it's hard to tell, but it's rotated 45 degrees. You can see it goes from blue to purple, sort of in a diagonal, but it's hard to tell. And you could use multiple colors. Oh, and you could also do repeating linear gradient. So yellow 10%, green 20% just means the yellow takes up 10% and the green takes up 20% of the, the image height. So we could, well, you can see all these different examples. But let's say we change this to 50% instead of 10%. Now you can see the yellow takes up more. But then there's no room for the red and the green anymore. Let's see. Red, yellow, green. I don't see any green anymore. What if we do red 10%? I don't know. So it's kind of confusing trying to do these other more advanced type gradients, but you're rarely gonna want to do something like that anyway. It looks ugly. But not sure why it doesn't work though. It only worked if it was. Let's refresh the page. 10%, green 20%. That's weird. If this is anything more than 10, it doesn't work. Not sure why. Oh, I think this percentage, the green always has to be higher. Okay, so yeah, 50% will work on the green, but the yellow has to start. So it's like the start and the end of the gradient. So the yellow starts at 10%, the green starts at 50%. But if we start it lower, then it just has more room to repeat. We start higher, then there's less room to repeat. I don't know. You could mess around with this to try to figure it out, but I'll just use a simple two-color gradient from top to bottom. So yeah, now I just want to fix the header again. We did the header before, but let's do one this time using display grid, because the other one we did it with position or display inline block. Any questions, by the way? No questions? Well, it's already 9:03. I won't have enough time to try that quiz. So, okay, I'll quickly do this header. The quiz isn't too important, but it's on W3 Schools if you want to try it out. Go to W3 Schools, go to References, and then click on, where is it? Maybe it's not under References. Where's the quiz? Oh, it's under Exercises. They moved it, so I guess they updated the website recently. It used to be under Reference. If you go to Exercises, there's a HTML quiz and a CSS quiz. I forgot which one was easier. I think the CSS might be easier. Yeah, this one's 40 questions. The CSS quiz is 25 questions. I think the CSS was a little bit easier. And I guess you could get certificates from here too. I don't know how important that is. Maybe I should get a certificate. But HTML quiz, you're gonna click start the quiz, and then it'll ask you these questions. Pick multiple choice. What does HTML stand for? Does anyone know? Is it hypertext markup language? Is it hyperlinks and text markup language? Or is it home tool markup language? Hypertext markup language. Sounds right, right? Who is making the web standards? I don't think I covered this with you, but it's the World Wide Web Consortium, or W3. Correct HTML element for the largest heading. The largest is the H1, so you gotta pick the H1. Correct HTML for inserting a line break. You just need a BR tag. Adding a background color. So BG, what if there was any HTML way? It's deprecated, meaning you don't use HTML to change the background anymore. So you have to use CSS. So the correct way would be to use style equals background color yellow. So this is an inline style. But you guys can try it out. But I mean, we don't have enough time to do all this, so probably just, I don't know. Maybe we'll do that tomorrow or something. I'll let you guys try it out and send it to me. Could be like a homework quiz. And you could, I guess, try it as many times as you need. But let's do this since we have a little bit of time left. Let's fix the header using CSS Grid. So header nav UL. First of all, we want list style type to be none. We don't want any bullets. So to get rid of the bullets, you put list style type none. No more bullets. We want the A inside. Header nav ULLI A. We want these to have no text decoration, no underline. So it gets rid of the underline. We also want to give them some padding to make them a little bit bigger, maybe 10 pixels. Oh, and in order for the padding 10 pixels to work, the A is currently display inline, which you can't give padding, you can't give a height or width. So we'll say display inline block. That way we could give it padding. So now it's bigger. We also want the entire nav to be centered inside the header, or the entire UL, I guess. So it's got a width of 300 pixels. So we'll just say margin auto, and that should center it. And maybe give the entire header some more padding, so this isn't so close to it. So header padding 20 pixels. Get some space there. And we could get rid of this ugly background color on the UL. And we could put a background color on the header instead. Just go with white. Maybe not white. I don't know what color. What does this one look like? It's fine. And then the color of the A's, maybe make those white. Okay. And then just to push these down a little bit, We'll give the header some margin on the bottom as well. Okay. And let's also get rid of this background color on the body. We don't need that. Alright, so that's your checkout page. And we could make this a little bit more responsive by adding a media query, because currently we have the shopping cart split into 2 columns. So we could just copy this, and on the bottom we could say add media, add media only screen and max dash width 900 pixels. We just want to change the grid template areas on this to 1 FR. So when we make it smaller, it's not working. Why are you not working? Grid template columns 1 FR. Oh, I don't know actually. Why is it not working? Display grid template column 1 FR. No idea why that's not working. Should be working, but it's not. Shopping cart, grid template columns. It's still 1 FR, 1 FR. It's not changing. You could see that here. If I select the shopping cart, it says grid template columns 1 FR, 1 FR. We could manually change it from here. Delete that. Now it's a single column. This is what I want to happen, but maybe my media query is wrong. Hashtag shopping cart. Media screen. No idea. Am I doing the media query wrong? Media query. I'm pretty sure I wrote it correctly, but it's not working. Media only screen and max dash width. That is exactly how I did it. And I tried it with the only. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I didn't include a space or something. Well, it seems to be working now. But what was I missing? Maybe it has to have a space here. That's super important. Yeah, I guess it's just that. If you don't put a space right here, it's not gonna work. So remember to add that space. But yeah, so now when we get too small, maybe we could start a little bit sooner, like 950 pixels. Or even sooner. Just do 1,000. So So at 1,000 pixels, it becomes one column. Anyway, so that's how you could design something like a shopping cart in a more complicated pattern where you've got rows and columns, but some things take up a couple rows. You could also do this with grid template columns and just change the number of rows something takes. But it's just easier if you do it with grid template areas and just, design it that way. Okay. Any questions? I think that's it. We're done. I honestly I covered a lot more in this CGD 200 than I have in the past. I went kind of fast and went beyond what you would normally learn. So don't worry if you didn't get all of it. I might repeat a lot of this in the next CGD web design class. But let me know if you have any questions, and try the W3 Schools quiz. I'll let you, you could take it as many times as you want because I have no way of knowing how many times you took it. But just take it. Take both the CSS and the HTML quiz. Redo it as many times as you want, and just send me the grade that you get. You can screenshot it and send it to me. It's not too important. I don't really worry too much about quiz scores or test scores. Important thing is that you try to take the quiz, and then by taking the quiz, you'll probably Google the answers to a lot of things and you'll learn stuff on your own. And it'll give me something to grade as your final. So I'll assign that on the Google Classroom so you don't forget. um, where's Google Classroom? I have too many of these open. So this quiz final, let's say W3 Schools HTML and CSS quizzes. Go to I'll just put the links to both of them. HTML quiz. Take the W3 Schools HTML quiz and take W3 Schools CSS quiz HTML. This one will be there. And upload a screenshot of your score. So yeah, you're doing it from home, and I have no way of checking how many times you did it, so take them as many times as you want. Don't worry too much about your score. It's not a huge part of your grade. The important thing is by taking the quiz, you might learn some new stuff. So that's the only reason I'm making you do this, just like a homework assignment. But I'll just count it as your final. I don't really use these points that I put here. I don't really use this for grading, so it doesn't matter what I put here. But I'll just say graded. Due date, let's make it just, I mean, it's just a quiz that you can take online. Since I'm letting you take it as many times as you want, I'll give you till 1 week from now, I guess. And topic final. By the way, this is for CGD 200. If you're in WST 157, you can also take it if you want, but it's not required. If you do take it, I'll count it, but if you don't take it, I won't count it. Okay, so sign out should be posted too right now. Sign out December 16. And the sign out code is, oh, you can't see the exercise? Oh, which exercise? Are you talking about this thing? I haven't uploaded this yet. I'll upload this too, so you can look at how the CSS grid works. I can't see the exercise on site. Why not? You click the link that I uploaded. Let's go to Google Classroom. It's under topics final. So where it says final, just click on that. Click the link. And then start the HTML quiz. And then the CSS quiz as well. Start the quiz. It should work. I don't know why it's not working. Maybe you need a refresh. So check again, Ramil on W3 Schools. It should be there. I just saw it. But anyway, the sign out code